Welcome to Friday night, and it's time for episode 25 of the Fancaste, where we talk all things WCBS and whatever hell else we want to talk about. So, with me on the phone when it's working, because the wildfires are going crazy, Mr. Erik Ward.
Just another Friday night, and I'm in traffic, and same old shit, different day. But hey, I'm out on fire, so it's all good.
Right. And at the other end of the continent, surviving the nor'easter, LMP.
Oh, I actually am glad to be back. I had a nice 2 weeks in hell and, getting prodded by devils with pitchforks. It was a really nice getaway, being sick and all.
Yeah. This cold, I had a bad head cold a couple weeks ago, and I don't think I talked about it last week, but on Tuesday night, after I'd gone to the doctor and missed more work, I guess I had a fever, and I was hallucinating in French, and it was really freaking me out. Because I don't know if it was real French or not, because I don't speak much French, but it sounded like French, and I didn't understand what I was saying.
So you were hallucinating in cuck language, basically.
Yeah, I was surrendering to the Germans.
Well, yeah, as groundskeeper Willie once said, the French are cheese-eating surrender monkeys.
Yeah, well, now they're surrendering to the Muslims, so there we go. There's your culture and sensitivity of the day. Well, no, we got culture and sensitivity number 2. So our first topic tonight is one of the ones that LMP has brought up more than once. I think it pisses him off more than anybody else, and that's Apu of the Simpsons.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know we talked about, we discussed it a while back, the documentary. I even forgot this cuck's name, the guy who did the documentary on True TV. Well, long story short, basically one of the voice actors, Hank Azaria, has pretty much all confirmed it at this point on an interview with TMZ that he apologizes. They saw the documentary. They apologize if Apu was offensive to people, if it hurt anyone. And this is essentially going to be the write-off for Apu. Now, as of right now, the rumor is that this coming episode this week is going to be his write-off. Whether or not that is true, I have yet to confirm. I've been really busy lately and sick, so I haven't exactly really looked into it much. Other things have also occurred that occupy my time. So, ladies and gentlemen, all I can really say is if they take Apu away from the series, kill him off, write him off. I mean, you've had dozens of characters who, were written off because voice actors, specifically like the late great Bill Hartman, who voiced a ton of characters, notably Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz, great characters to the series. You could even sense how there was a change in the series quality when he passed away. I didn't know about this when I was a kid. I didn't know about the whole situation, but you can see how the series just kind of declined in quality. I don't know if you guys still watch some of the episodes now of The Simpsons. Have any of you guys watched some of the, I'll say the episodes in the last 5 to 10 years?
Nope.
I've seen a couple of them. I never watched the show.
Yeah. But one reason why I'm bringing up last 5 to 10 years.
I'll watch it. It's pretty funny.
I mean, it has its gems now and then. If anything, I say the episodes that are based in the future are pretty entertaining because it just feels like this is the way the series should have gone at some point. Instead of being it's a weird series to see modernized. You saw Bart and Lisa were still 10 in 2017 now. It would make a little more sense if they were a little older, adapting to the times. And that's why I like the future episodes a little bit, because it's you get to see different, sides of them, see how their lives change and everything. It's kind of interesting. It's like a sitcom, so to speak. But the reason why I bring it up is because there was actually a point where it was starting to get interesting again. For those of you that haven't watched the series in a long time, Ned Flanders, another character, was married to Maude Flanders. When she died, there was a long period of time when Ned was basically raising his 2 kids on his own. He was concerned about dating again. And he ended up dating Bart's teacher and the Krabappel, marrying her. And it actually was a nice little shift in the series. It was actually nice to see a different, the series focused on 2 different characters. New stories revolved around them. Seeing how that relationship was working. How he was trying to move past his previous marriage. How he was widowed. And how she's basically found some stability in her life, some happiness. And of course, Marshall Wallace. I hope I'm getting the right name here. I'm so sorry if I'm getting the wrong name. But when she passed away, it kind of took that away from the series, and that was a couple years ago, I believe, when she passed away. Another voice actress. So basically, where I'm getting at with all this, and I'm sorry if I'm rambled on. I only want to really make this short. Is that every time there seems to be a character getting written off, the series goes into the shift where it starts to suck. It starts to drop in quality again, and it's because there's like a piece of the heart, like a little bit of heart that the show had going for it is missing. If they essentially take Apu out from one of the dumbest mundane reasons out there, I will say at this point, just put the between the series is a proverbial two eyes, pull the trigger, and just bury it and give it an honorable funeral. I'm done if this happens.
If Disney does end up buying Fox, that show may very well be put out to pasture, so to speak.
Well, yeah, that was another concern we had too, wasn't it?
Yep, and that's true. It's what I don't understand. I don't know why Disney swerved back, because I remember, and we can talk about the Disney and Fox stuff too if we're done with the poo. I mean, are you done?
Yeah, it's irrelevant. It really is.
Because, I remember back in the early 80s when the movie The Black Hole came out. Yep. And that was the first PG, if I remember correctly, it was PG. I don't think it was PG-13. I don't think PG-13 existed yet.
Yeah, because that wasn't until like 84, I think.
Right. It was the first PG Disney movie. And, you think about like the Bambi and all that stuff, in some of these movies are kind of violent, but they're all rated G. And a lot of the stuff was off screen, right? Well, with The Black Hole, you had some rather disturbing imagery. When Maximilian basically kills, I think it was the doctor. He puts the splitting blades, getting. There's not a lot of gore, but there's a lot of tension and emotion there. I remember seeing it kind of being freaked out as a kid. But, that was a big milestone for Disney, and they came out with more PG-rated movies. And then Pretty Woman was the first rated R Disney movie. And people
Touchstone,
right. So it was a Disney subsidiary, but it was a big deal when it came out, and it did well. And so I don't know where they reversed course, and they're afraid of anything really over PG-13. And Pretty Woman had some. I mean, there was some nudity. There was a controversy whether it was Julia Roberts or a body double. But it wasn't gratuitous, and it wasn't overly done. So it was erotic, but not in the Skinamax kind of way.
I mean, just the fact that she was a hooker was
right.
I mean, for Disney, that's pretty controversial,
right? And I know there were probably people who were angry and upset, but I guess I don't pay enough attention to understand why Disney is now going the other way. And if they acquire Fox. And I agreed with, I think it was Jeff that said, no more, Deadpool and stuff like that. They're going to cancel a lot of stuff. They're going to reboot stuff that's R and make it PG-13, which will be horrible. So I don't understand why this family-friendly only atmosphere. But, we look at Lucas in the prequels in the late 90s when he had heard, it was out in California in the, where the oxygen's thinner, I guess. And all these parent groups were complaining to him. I mean, all this nonsense about Star Wars recently being, I think Mark Hamill's even said it's for kids. Star Wars was never for little kids. The original Star Wars was geared at the young, adolescent male, for the most part, to mid-20s. And it was, we get a little bit of a hint of cuteness with the Ewoks, but let's not forget what the Ewoks do. Some of them get killed. They are cannibals, they're beaten on the empty armor of the stormtroopers, but where did the bodies go? But after Return of the Jedi, we had 2 Ewok adventure movies that were really aimed at kids. So I can see kind of where maybe that was the undertones, and now it's 30 years later, and that's why Disney is the way it is. I don't know, but it's annoying to me that anything semi-controversial, all it takes is one blogger and 100 people to tweet it, and we get the thing right now where people are apologizing for Apu and want to, it's one thing if the character has served his purpose and time and it's getting tiresome. Yeah, that's when they usually retire characters or the voice actor dies or whatever. But just to kowtow to a handful of nutbags that don't have a sense of humor, that if we can't make fun of ourselves, we can't make fun of anybody. Yes, he's a stereotype and a caricature, but that is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not. I mean, we're talking about Disney in relation to this, like where Disney decides to suddenly drop any sense of risqueness. I mean, think about, what was it? Hell, you had something. What was it? Fantasia also had a lot of dark imagery. With Beelzebub, the devil himself. I believe the scene there where basically, what was it? I forgot what it was called. The scene is something in hell. You've had that, so I mean, yeah. Granted, it's a little more classical. It's a little more, not in the more modern day era, but still, case in point. Hell, I would even like to bring up an example he was talking about. He was talking about the Black Cauldron and some of the, crazy things that happened to it. That happened there. I'm gonna give you another example about a movie that has a PG rating. It could have even been pushed a little further if you think about the context of some of the things that occurred in the movie. And that was Lilo and Stitch. I don't know if you ever saw that with your kids.
The kids used to watch it all the time.
I mean, weren't there scenes in the moment, like when you watch that movie, you think to yourself, this is, I don't understand this is a kid's film, but some of the things that even the little girl's talking about are pretty fucked up. Like, how did Disney let this movie get made?
Yeah. Well, that was a TV show first, right?
No, it was a movie first. In fact,
okay.
Yeah, I didn't even know when it came out. But me and my brother saw it. We bought the DVD. I think I got him the DVD for Christmas. He's still a little kid, so I got him the DVD for Christmas. We enjoyed it, and as kids, we didn't catch on to some of the things that were trying to really be elaborated in the movie. But as an adult, I caught on a lot, and I was like, holy shit, this movie really. I understand why it resonates with me still as an adult. Not because of the nostalgia factor, but because of what points the movie was trying to make. And basically, you know how they always have the stereotypical orphan child, and they usually have like a caretaker or some fairy tale character that always saves them.
Right.
In the midway. In this one, they kind of twisted that a little bit because it was her character, the little girl Lilo, living with her sister Nani, who essentially are two orphan sisters because both their parents died in a car crash, and the result of which basically forced Nani, who's still essentially just barely an adult herself, forced to be in the mother to a younger child, a child that she can barely take care of, a child who's emotionally disturbed, traumatized even, can't get along with kids in her own school, has certain beliefs, about a magical fish and everything. Yeah, it's a Samoan. It's about Samoa and everything. Before they even did this whole, what was this last movie they did about the Samoans with The Rock, and Disney did it.
Is that? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I haven't even watched it, but I saw it and I was like, this is like an exact opposite of I think what Lilo and Stitch was trying to do. That movie was very serious. Again, the little girl even said at one point she wanted her sister to leave her alone to die. That's how depressed the girl was really was. Think about that for a second. And this was in 2002.
Right.
So remove what, like maybe 15 years?
Right.
Disney had a certain edge to it. They weren't afraid to push buttons, and people really loved that series. Now, I will say this much: as series and dark even that first movie got, the later installments and the TV shows were much more child friendly and comedic. So I think the issue here is that there are times when Disney isn't willing to pull punches. I mean, they're not willing to pull punches, and they'll go ahead. They'll take those risks. But then the moment they see like either some positive feedback or any type of like, oh, people like Stitch because they had a cuddly animal in it. Case in point, I think that was probably one of the selling points of the movie. Probably wouldn't have succeeded if it wasn't for that character.
Right.
They saw, oh, hey, we can market it now to kids, so let's go ahead and make a child-friendly version of it. Because they did that essentially with a lot of their shows.
Right.
And I think it's the creation of all these spin-off shows that they started making that they needed to make sure they make it to a more child friendly audience, the like still children or preteens. And then if you noticed, then you started having things like Lizzie McGuire happening all of a sudden in the Kim Possible shows. Some light feminism in there, or hey, strong female characters. And it's kind of like Disney saw this is the way. It maybe, who knows? For all we know, Disney probably saw this whole like, hey, this is the audience we have to cater to in the future. So let's start now. Let's put in the seeds now. So down the line, this is what the content that we produce, and we'll slowly distance ourselves from what made us that company. The company that actually wasn't willing to take this, company that was willing to be controversial at times, a company that was willing to push people's buttons because they used to do it.
Right.
And
oh yeah.
They just want to stay safe because I'm sure that they've done their market research on
exactly
what's their target audience. So they're trying to play it as safe as possible to make sure they make as much money as possible.
Yeah.
Because they're not stupid.
No, and I think this it's all the social media nonsense. I think it started back in the 80s, and for a long time it was just because it was semi-local, but that's 30 years on. So now kids who grew up with the parents that were that vain are the ones who are on social media more. They're 30. They're in the 22 to 32 range. They're, if they get offended by stuff, it's the snowflake power is what it is. And on the other side of it is they've turned Disney. Yes, Disney always was a business to make money, but it was a lot of it for a long time was more entertainment first. It's like if you build quality entertainment, you'll make the money. Now all it is the money. And so they have their formulas. They know where not to tread, and some of it is the expense of making a movie. If you're gonna, if you take a movie that takes $300 million to make and at least that much to market, and you take a chance and it pulls in $400 million, you're pretty much out of business.
John Carter,
right? And Disney had the thing is I saw John Carter not too long ago. And I don't remember what all the hubbub was about it, but I was like, the movie isn't that bad.
It's an alright movie.
It's a lot of hokiness because even if you were transported to Mars, you're not going to be flying through the air, jumping like that. But I understand it's based on a book, what is it, Jules Verne or something? It was 19th century, so I get that. But then they had the Lone Ranger and. Johnny Depp was a hot commodity, and they had him playing Tonto, which I thought was stupid. You're talking about caricatures. And that movie lost them a lot of money. Tron didn't do well, and I don't understand. I still believe Tron Legacy failed because Disney was pushing all that 3D garbage as opposed to the movie wasn't bad. Now, granted, I was a nerd back in the 80s when the first one came out, and I thought it was great, and most people thought I was nuts. And when I tell them I thought Tron Legacy was better, they think I'm double nuts. So
that's funny you mentioned that. There's actually a Simpsons joke about that where it was a Halloween episode, and Homer wound up in a 3D land, something that's really new territory for the Simpsons as they were all 2D, right? So they made a joke where Homer asked, and they're like, Homer, can you tell us where you are? He's like, anybody ever seen the movie Tron? And it's like everybody that's gathered on the other side of the other dimension, in the regular 2D dimension, is like, no. And I think the last one is Chief Wiggum, who said yes, and then he's like realized what he said. It's like no. So somebody might be in the same ballpark as you with that one. Just saying.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's annoying. I think it's frustrating, and they don't have to take big risks, but I really believe that at some point all the remake nonsense train is going to stop, and it's not going to work. We have seen some remakes that didn't do well. I know they made the Brady movies. They made those, and I didn't watch any of them. some of the remakes there were acting like it was still the 70s, and some have been modernized. But yeah, I would really like to see some original or semi-original movie making. But yeah, if Disney fully buys Fox, and now there's some hubbub that they'll sell back, like the sports and stuff like that. Part of it is I don't know where Disney's got all this money. I mean, they gave $4 billion to Lucas. The ESPN division is losing money. They're having to lay off more people. The ABC arena is losing because of they have college football that's kind of keeping that afloat. But the NFL packages that they have through ESPN, with people boycotting the games and stuff, they're losing money there. They lost NASCAR to Fox a while ago, so maybe that's part of it. I wouldn't be surprised if there is money being loaned for this that the government's backing, because I still believe that the only reason why we have these huge companies is because of the government guaranteed loans. And if we had true free market capitalism, yeah, you might still get some companies doing this, but when that faltered, they would be histoire. So that would be very cautious for large buyouts. Most of these things take financing that they don't have in cash, but they'll take in stock options and all that other stuff, which is really just loans. And I'm going to see if I can get Erik back again. He dropped yet again.
Damn. Well, maybe, who knows? Maybe he's fighting a bear or something. And by bear, I don't mean four-legged animal.
Right. And so,
it's California after
and
all.
speaking of people not being back on, I did hear back from Kendo. He's busy being an uncle tonight. So, welcome back, Erik.
Is he? Thank you, sir. I apologize. I don't know what's going on with the airwaves tonight. Maybe it's the Illuminati.
The fire.
So what's Kendo doing? Is he going to the movies tonight, or is he just hanging out with his nephew, or what is he doing?
I don't know. He just said he has doofus duties. So
Nicely put.
But yes, Disney, they're not going to take any chances. They're going to market not only for, obviously box office success, but they're going to market for their theme parks, what they can sell in their theme parks, what they can sell for merchandise. I mean, they're not going to take any risk. They're going to play it safe and make a whole lot of money.
yeah, and hopefully at some point that money train dries up. I mean, it's part of what you miss. I really want to believe that at some point the remake money train, maybe we're seeing it a little bit with, the MCU is not, these things are, the money is they're not making huge amounts with these like they were. I mean, I know it's very slight decreases. We're still talking $800-900 million. But if we get a trend going, that'll freak people out, and maybe we'll probably reboot it all again. Like, hey, it worked before, let's do it again, but only make half as many movies or something stupid.
Well, if they were smart, what they would do is, like they did in the past, like with Touchstone Pictures, you just develop, another subsidiary of your company that is going to, do a different type of entertainment. It's part of the mouse, yes, but it's not your main, Disney variety that, you can buy in, every theme park you go into,
Right.
It's funny you mentioned this. One of the things that's been going on in games recently is particularly like with Nintendo. Nintendo's always had that history of being this family-friendly, company and everything. Now, granted, these games haven't come out yet, but one of the things that Nintendo's been doing is, especially with the Switch, is that they've expanded the market a little bit, even into the third parties, some of which now that are, I think at this point, going to become subsidiaries of theirs, because just the way some of this content is exclusively for them, just for the Nintendo Switch, but they're getting more like rated M games, and in my opinion, really good ones that have a small demand and actually have a decent following. What was it yesterday? God, by the way, if anybody's wondering, no, I did not watch the Game Awards, but I did hear about the announcement of Bayonetta 3. Anybody who's ever YouTube Bayonetta or knows what that game is about. Basically, it is soft-core porn, the game.
Is that the anime character has the real long hair that?
Yeah.
Her hair makes her clothing and everything.
Yep.
Okay.
Developed by a chick, nonetheless.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you guys find that interesting, rather, that the creator of the character is actually female, and when people were giving the character shit, she said, "Why are you giving her shit? I'm a woman, and this is what, you know, women like to feel beautiful. So I made her a beautiful woman." You know, she went to bat for that character, so I applaud her for what she did.
Yeah.
And Eric dropped off, but the point I was trying to make is, how they said you have subsidiaries like, hey, we still do the family-friendly content, but we'll have like this more adult-oriented or more older audience-oriented content over here if you want to look at it. We're not going to just limit ourselves to safe products, so to speak. So, honestly, it would be nice if Disney did that, but I don't see it happening. I think I know another thing that might be the reason why Disney has gotten us to this level that they have, and I've noticed that there's been almost pretty much what is a rise in Pixar.
Right.
And notice how Pixar's movies sometimes tend to be ridiculously like child friendly. Like they don't even seem like they are made for adults at some point. Or like I think Incredibles was one of the few instances where they made it for adults. I mean, because again, it had to stand on its own. It wasn't about nostalgia. There wasn't an Incredible series prior to that.
Right.
Unlike Toy Story, which banked on emotions of nostalgic feelings. I'm not gonna lie, I fell into that trap myself when the third one came out. That's why I don't want to watch a fourth.
Are they making a fourth one?
Yeah, it's pretty much confirmed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I wish I didn't tell you about it, but it's pretty much.
I mean, I liked the first one. I really liked the second one. The third one was so-so to me. But see, this is also starting to feel like a Disney series where that fourth one, it might be released in theaters, but, Disney has a habit of going straight to video for some things. And this is what I fear with Star Wars. At some point, we're going to get, it may not be a trilogy or an episodic one, but we'll get, Yoda, a Star Wars movie, and it'll be straight to video, or worse, on their streaming service only.
Oh God, no! I am not paying money for that.
Yeah, and that's the other side of this possible. Well, it sounds like it's about 85% confirmed, but we get this merger, and how much stuff is either going to go away, or how much is Disney going to hide behind a paywall somewhere? And unless you buy their service, you're not going to be able to watch those old Fox movies anymore.
Honestly, if it goes down that route, I'm gonna go to the nearest stores. In fact, actually, I might start doing that now. I have a copy of Predator, but Alien and Die Hard, a few others. I'm gonna start buying copies of those when they go on sale, because if they go behind the paywall, and there's no telling how they'll probably get like newer versions re-released with jacked up prices under the Disney banner.
Yeah.
Because one of the things they mentioned was how they wanted to get that sweet original Star Wars trilogy, the one that we have all watched and have, for the most part, favorable opinions of.
Now, I will like it if they take what was released in the 90s, the THX remastered that's on VHS that I have, and re-release that on
Blu-ray. I still have those.
Yeah, I do too. Because that, to me, those are yes, I like some of the things they changed when Lucas re-released them in the 90s before the prequels. Empire was the only one I saw. I know what all the changes were. I know what they added in. You could get it on the web even back then. It was slow, but you could see. There were a couple minor tweaks to dialogue here and there, which it was kind of annoying, especially when R2 gets eaten. But most of it was just cleaning up the effects. And they added some things in what were supposed to be windows in Cloud City, which were just walls, and that I didn't mind. But the deleted scene nonsense, that some of the CGI bullshit that he added in A New Hope, and I forget what he added in Return of the Jedi. But by
the
then,
Sarlacc pit and stuff. He went light on Jedi and Empire. A New Hope was the biggest.
Right. I think he added the Wilhelm scream and some other crap that wasn't there before. But the what I have on VHS, if I could get a Blu-ray copy of that, I would be happy. I don't want any other version. I don't want because then he made even newer, 2 or 3 more versions after the prequels, and then you put Jar Jar in the at the end of Return of the Jedi, you've got Jar Jar, and he replaced Hayden Christensen as the Force Ghost, and I mean just dumb.
Because he did more stuff for the DVDs right around the time the prequels were being made, and then in the 2011 Blu-ray release, he did more shit then too.
Yeah, and that's why I never bought any of those. As much as I'm a fan of the original series.
Blinking Ewok.
Yeah. If anything, I would have taken some of the Ewok stuff out of Return of the Jedi. But
oh god,
that when I was 15, my favorite was Return of the Jedi. But as I got a little older, because that's how old I was when I saw Return of the Jedi, and I started to like the first one more, and then by the time I was mid-20s, Empire was my favorite.
That's always been my favorite.
Yeah. Once I understood the story arc and why it was darker and all that, and Empire was that was the first one I saw actually, but back in '80, I guess that was. But it was an interesting piece, and so some people might say, oh, we're just being paranoid, and won't it be great to have all the Marvel characters, or most of them together, other than Spider-Man, because I think Sony still owns that. The Fantastic Four. Well, the Fantastic Four were probably, outside of Spider-Man, now people are going to probably think I'm crazy, but from what I remember in the 70s, you had Spider-Man, the Hulk, and the Fantastic Four, and that was about it as far as Marvel.
Well, the only thing I'll say is this much: if Disney does get the Fantastic Four, I don't know what people are hoping to get from it. I mean, I was hoping to see at some point a movie where Mr. Fantastic slaps Susan Storm, because I know he's done that a couple times in the comics.
Yeah, but we're going to get. I think this is perhaps why I'm fatigued out on the Marvel stuff, is they're getting bland. And, I haven't seen Ragnarok, but, Jeff was talking about how...
It's a fun movie.
Yeah, it's a comedy, but he saw it once and it's like, okay, that's it.
Honestly, I felt like they were trying to say something with that movie, because, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but let's just say some of their music choices, some of the stuff that they even, dialogue-wise and stuff like that, you'll see what I get at if you ever decide to watch it.
I'll see it eventually, but... It'll be a while.
Some undertones. Like, there's some undertones there, and I'm like, huh. I even asked my brother about it, and he's like, yeah, I kind of picked up a little on, I guess you're right. And I'm like, huh. I guess I'm not the only one going crazy. Not saying they're getting political. I'm just saying they're going somewhere.
Right.
It's a good movie, but, like we've discussed before on Fancaste and the main shows too. So, even if you're getting a good movie every time, you're getting 2 to 3 movies a year, there's going to become a point where it just becomes redundant,
I think we're getting there, essentially. I mean, if we haven't already, we're getting...
You have no time to breathe and just
we don't
enjoy it,
Yeah. And we'll see, but maybe I want to believe there's somewhere in the Disney Fox merger there's a silver lining of some sort, even if it's razor thin. But to me, it's a money grab with the power of guaranteed funds behind them and big banks behind them and the government sponsoring the big banks. It's the only way they can buy out a company that size.
Somebody needs to put Disney in check.
Well, I think Disney's going to get a critical mass here, and it's going to start falling apart. Other companies that's happened to. IBM was huge back in the 80s, and it's the 70s and the 80s. And that was Jobs. He was so concentrated on Big Blue, which now that I know more about the hardware and things and that I didn't know back then, he never made a computer to compete against him. So it's like he was obsessed with beating Big Blue, but he never made a machine that had a better architecture than the PC, and that's why the PC won. But its open architecture, in many ways, was IBM's undoing, because by the mid '90s, fewer and fewer people were buying PCs from IBM, and then early 2000s they stopped making PCs altogether.
It's kind of true. I did notice that during that time.
Right, and then because of changes in architecture, things that Sun Microsystems was doing, they lost out on some of the big iron stuff. They're still a big company and still around, but they are not the thought leaders in tech anymore. And they used to have a saying 25, 30 years ago that no one ever got fired for buying IBM. But that hasn't been true in a long time. And Apple resurrect from the dead, and they're more of a now they're faltering. Google's getting to be that size too, where it might stay a big company, but its importance gets diminished. And Disney may have the same thing happen. I hope so. I hope where people don't think of Disney as entertainment anymore. And it's already over $100 a day per person to go to frickin' Disney World. Okay.
I know. It's outrageous.
I don't know how, anybody in the middle class goes to Disney World more than once in their life. I really don't. You take a family of 4 to, say, 4 days in Disney World, okay, that's $1,600 just on the frickin' tickets to the damn park. That does not include wherever you're going to stay, and if you stay at a Disney World resort, expensive as crap. I would bet you that's another $1,000 or $2,000 easily.
We're talking about taking the kids in the next year or two to Disneyland, and it's going to cost us right around $400 to walk in the park.
Right.
That's to walk in.
Yep.
And you're going to drop some serious money inside.
Yep.
That's true.
At least close to maybe $800 to $1,000, depending on how long you're there and what you buy.
Right. Yeah. We have Kings Island here in Cincinnati, and I haven't been since my kids were really little. But it hasn't been true for a couple of years. But when my daughter was in middle school and whenever she was old enough to get in the park by herself, I forget what age that is, 14 or whatever. We bought our Golden Pass because they go on sale like right around now for next year. And most people, if they do that around here, that's what they do. So you spend about $100. You can go as often as you want. You get in an hour early. And especially once we had a car for her that she could drive, or she went with friends, they'd go as soon as they could get in the park and they might buy a snack there, but by 1 or 2 o'clock they're coming home, especially in the summertime. Or they would come home and eat, take a nap, and go back in later when it was cooler. But if you're, visiting here and you just have a day or two to go to Kings Island, you're going to spend that $15 on 2 hot dogs and a thing of fries.
It's Disney.
And Disney's probably more than that. I went to Disney World in Florida back in the late 80s. We took our own food. We had a cooler in the car, and my dad went and fetched it, and we sat out in the picnic area or somewhere.
Oh, I thought you meant
Disneyland got.
I was about to say, wow, I didn't know that was a thing.
And Disneyland got smart. I don't know about Disney World, but I'm sure it's the same thing where they added what they call California Adventureland out here in Disneyland. Sometime about I'd say 10 years ago or so, maybe 10 to 15 years, where you can go buy beer there now. So they got the adults for that. So
right, they probably did something similar. But and so we would buy like drinks or something. But we would. Now this is in '87 or '88. I forget exactly what. I think it was '87 when we went, and we would still spend $10-12 just on drinks. But then we'd make our sandwiches or whatever. And then granted, you had to take the time out. And my dad had to leave the park, which there you have to get on a ferry, I think. And, it's not just like here where you can just walk out, get your hand stamp, and walk to your car and go back in. So it took them almost an hour to get all of our stuff and, and eat and whatever. But, I cannot comprehend, maybe these are the people who don't save. They don't save a dime for retirement. So that's when they hit 70, they have no money to their name. I don't know. But at some point, I gotta believe that this thing's gonna reach a critical mass where it'll be like, oh look, there's another Disney film coming out. Yeah, who gives a crap? You know, and they're not going to be entertained.
That's what it's going to come down to.
There's some startup that's going right now that in 10 years is going to eat Disney's lunch.
Oh, it's, you know, you said it before, Star Wars and Marvel. The fatigue, if it hasn't hit, it's going to hit. It's bound to.
Well, there's more and more people in the WCBS comments. Some of these are new listeners who are saying, "Yep, I'm just about done with Marvel. You know, I'm getting tired. I don't want 4 movies a year. Can we wrap it up? I want to go home." You know.
Yep. Well, if they were smart, they would be making films, just standalone movies. Once the Infinity War thing is over, just standalone movies. Try to make everything part of the same universe. Just make cool and fun movies, and don't make 2 to 3 a year.
Right. And that one of the things that you missed when you were dropped off, we were talking about Disney also has a habit, especially in older series movies, where they have previously gone straight to video. With like Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves or something like that.
Yep,
you know,
I remember that.
You know, he's talking about Toy Story 4. So, LMP, do you know for sure they're making a Toy Story 4, or is that?
I'll confirm it right now.
Okay.
I know I saw it somewhere on online one point. I was like, God damn it. I know everybody I knew was excited for it, but I'm like, shit.
Right.
You know, 3 was supposed to be the climax and everything. It's kind of like with Logan, which I, by the way, finally bought the black and white version and watched it.
Yeah, it was cool.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, it was even more depressing in the Noir version.
I mean, if Disney buys Fox, you're not going to see that.
No, hell no. And that's a worry of mine because that
you're
movie.
Not going to see. I mean, you're not going to see Logan saying "fuck" to a child. That ain't going to happen.
Right.
You know.
No, it's not going to happen again. And again, one of the reasons why I like that movie so much is because of how it was different. It wasn't a hero movie. It was essentially the death of a hero. That's
I mean, can you imagine if they do buy Fox? I mean, you think you're going to see fucking Deadpool with getting fucked in the ass, with a strap on by his girlfriend? It's not going to happen.
Okay,
man.
so
That will not be in there.
Okay, so here it is. Yes, it is actually confirmed for 2019. And the story of it, oh god, this is pretty much nostalgia all written on it. Toy Story 4. I'll actually read you what the summary is. Woody and Buzz go on an adventure to find the one toy who was given away. Bo Peep. Let's face it. That's your nostalgia hook.
When was she given away?
In 3, because essentially in 3 they referenced early on that one of the toys that Woody liked, when the girl, the Bo Peep character, whatever. Yeah, I still remember, sue me. That she was giving it away, and he seemed really sad about that. Obviously, hinting at that romance, but I don't know how romance between 2 plastic toys would work, but whatever. I'm not gonna speculate that now.
Yeah, don't judge, man. Don't judge.
You're a sexist and a racist.
Okay, I understand the sexist. How racist?
I don't know, man. You tell me. Anymore, dude? Anymore, if you don't go with the status quo, you're a fucking racist. I don't get it either, but that seems to be the trend.
Hey, you can call me racist. It's practically what we do up here down here in Mexico, or shall I say, hell? Jesus, we're racist against ourselves, and yet we expect sympathy. No, fuck out of here with that shit. I've seen I've watched way too much Alex Jones to know the truth now.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness though, it was actually a while back. I think it was like last year or the year before they announced it, and I was like, God damn it. You made 3 essentially to be the closeout of the trilogy, to seal the deals, end the story. That was it. Now you're making a 4 to continue the series.
It's all about money, man. It's all about money. We gotta sell new action figures, we gotta sell new toys.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm done with that.
Well, 2 was really a closeout.
Right? In many ways, it was.
Right? Toy Story 2. I forget how I can picture the two. Woody and Buzz.
Get it right.
Team Buzz.
You know, they're like, you know, because and somebody says, you know, eventually Eddie. The hell's
Eddie.
what's the kid's name again?
It is Eddie. It is Eddie. Let's go with Eddie.
He was going to stop playing with us. He said, "Well, you know, we'll just enjoy it while it lasts." You know, Buddy says that. So, it was a closeout, and I thought 3 had a, you know, he's older, he's going off to college or whatever, and I kind of get that, and you get a. Although, you know, 3 had for this, you know, for a Pixar flick that had, you know, some dark moments there in that with the Care Bear looking character.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Yeah, it was kind of it was twisted
Out there in the it was a preschool, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Again, it was I was telling Brian when you was off the air for a few minutes. One of the best Disney movies that I really liked in terms of the animation ones. You know, he brought up about the Black Cauldron and you know how
Not the Black Cauldron, the Black Hole.
My fault. Okay, I keep getting the name wrong.
You know, the Black Cauldron was also I saw it when it came out in 1985, and that movie did not do well because it was dark, man.
Oh hell yeah!
Not a movie you took little kids to see.
Well, see,
For
it's still
Disney was pretty bold.
Still relevant, jackass. Anyways, I was talking about Lilo and Stitch. I don't know if you ever watched that, Eric, and how.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It like, have you ever thought like when you watched it as an adult, how messed up of a movie that is in terms of context?
There's a lot of adult content, even in the older Disney movies. It's just disguised to, you know, when you're a kid, it just goes right over your head.
Yeah, watch it as an adult and realize, holy shit, this movie actually, if the kids only understood, it would actually find this movie more depressing than they would, you know, like, I guess, I don't know, whatever kids find nowadays. I don't know, I haven't been a kid in a long time, so I don't know what that would feel like. But that's a movie that I watch nowadays and think, well, not nowadays, but I watched it like maybe in the last couple of years and thought to myself, damn. As a kid, I didn't pick up on any of the things she was talking about, the little girl referencing wanting to die and everything, but this is pretty dark. They don't make movies like this anymore. And it's not going to happen again. I don't think it's going to happen again for a very long time.
And the other thing I was saying, Eric, so imagine in light of Disney saying they're going to have their own streaming service and all like that, at some point we start getting direct to streaming service behind the paywall Star Wars movies. So we get Yoda, you know, the younger years of Star Wars movie pay-per-view basically.
They're going to milk that cow for every last bit of milk, you know.
We'll get a Ben Kenobi, the young, you know, the teenage years. I mean, they can attempt to milk the nostalgia cow for a long time.
They're going to squeeze those titties like a horny teenager.
Are we talking about Leia's or Rey's? Because one has.
I'm talking about the cow.
The teats.
The cash cow.
The udder. They will squeeze the udder.
I would not want to try to fondle Rey's tits because, number one, she doesn't have them, and I don't find her very attractive.
There was a porn I saw, a porn parody, not complete porn parody. It was like a trailer where it was an actress playing Rey, and I'm like, shit. If only Rey looked like this, maybe this movie would be better liked by a lot of people.
Well, you know what though? They purposely are not trying to make her look all dialed up. Because I saw her on, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel the other night. She looked good. Her hair was kind of feathered. It was long. She was in a tight dress. It's like, wow, she looks kind of attractive. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, she's got to be androgynous in the Disney framework. Although I was reading an article today about is it Laura Dern's character? I forget what her name is, but how she's supposed to be.
It's Holdo.
You know,
Vice Admiral Holdo.
Right. They're making her more feminine. What really pissed me off about the article? It's talking about how we can have strong women who don't look like boys, and I'm like, Did you watch Wonder Woman in the 70s, you stupid shit?
Yep.
Because you had a beautiful, gorgeous woman who was a strong character.
Yeah, she was strong and intelligent.
You know, Princess Leia never looked like a boy, and she was one of the strongest female characters ever. Now, could she pick up a car and throw it? No. But she had the emotional strength and the leadership strength. You know, Ripley in the original Alien and even in Aliens,
God, yes.
She's not.
Ripley kicked ass.
Right. She's not, bench pressing 400 pounds. She doesn't look like a boy. She's got a feminine figure to her.
She was a survivor, man.
You know, you had some femininity in Xena. Although she had a little bit more tomboyishness, so sometimes they played that character a little bit differently. But in
possibly a lesbian too, by the way.
Right, I know. But both of the actors have said no. I
don't know, that one episode was very convincing.
I know, but in Spartacus, the mini series that was on Showtime, I think that was, or whatever it was on, Stars. There were several female characters in that who were ruthless, and they were gorgeous. Okay, I mean we're talking stabbing people, betrayal, everything else. Maybe they're a little bit evil, but they didn't look like boys, and they're running. And sometimes they are running around naked. This whole concept that, because I saw some concept art, people were complaining about though I haven't seen it, but I guess in Justice League, the way that the Amazons look. And I'm like, because their midriffs are bare. Oh my God. And this is kind of the thing in the it's a kind of Gamergate nonsense that the female characters in fantasy, the armor, it doesn't look anything like. It's like, did you watch Hercules? He had his shirt off probably 2/3 of that show. Did you watch Legend of the Seeker? That guy was shirtless 90% of the time, and he's fighting.
That's different because we can't depict women like that nowadays.
I know, but I'm saying is there have been many men heroes who aren't wearing full body armor.
Yes,
and
honestly,
yet, they think it's a woman only thing, and I'm like, get a life.
I want to go a step further with that. And this is something that, damn it, I didn't think I would reference this in a very long time, but I think this was something Dustin said when he was still on the main show. And even I think Jeff has kind of even alluded to it a little bit when he was talking about the Baywatch movie, the remake.
Right.
How there's kind of this sense of, and I'm going to use a general term here. Sue me, anybody who wants to get mad about this. Actually, don't, because all you're gonna get is tortillas and tacos, and I'm not giving those up. But the point that what I want to say is basically how there's this kind of like, and even George Carlin might have even talked about this. It's crazy how we're now finally getting to this. How he meant he's still talking about how there's like not only a pacification, but the queerification in America. And what I mean by queerification is almost kind of like this doing this gender bending thing, where
he called it the pussification.
Yeah, okay, so we'll stick with pussification because I think if anything, it's a better word, and it's also more insulting. And I have my reasons for that later on. We'll get to and it's a topic that really upset me this week. But we'll get to that eventually. And it's this whole notion that men have to be more effeminate, women have to be more masculine. That there's 31, 72, 85, 101, I don't care, genders out there, despite the fact that I don't know what questioning, how is that even a gender? How many more letters you're adding into that freaking LGBT nonsense that has gotten out of control, in my opinion. And it's everywhere. Like, again, they chose, like, you're making the point, Eric, about Ray. Ray, the actress that plays her, I would not doubt that under the right circumstances, yes, I could imagine her being a very elegant or gorgeous or pretty woman. She looks like she has that look to her. But it's this whole, oh no, we got to conceal her. We got to conceal her body. We got to put on essentially the type of clothes that a rape victim would wear when they don't want to show off their body shape or curves or whatever. And if you think that's insensitive, wait till we get to another topic I want to talk to eventually. She has her hair all bunned up on the top, and not sexy like Leia in any shape or form. Has to be hyper masculine for her gender, to the point that she even tells the character, "Oh, you don't need to hold my hand or something like that. I can do it myself or something like that."
Stop touching me.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't watch that movie, nor am I going to give it the light of day after what I've heard from it. And people were giving shit about Wonder Woman, about the Amazons looking, gorgeous and stuff like that. Well, in Legend, that's what the Amazons were. They were gorgeous.
They were
gorgeous.
They were gorgeous.
They were gorgeous.
They were fierce. Yeah.
They were fierce. They were independent. The only thing they needed the men for, if ever they came into contact with them, was for procreation. They really didn't keep that. They really, if ever, rarely kept the men around for pleasure. Well, yeah, they kept it for pleasure if you include sex, but but from what I understand in Amazon culture, if there were any males born into society, usually those babies were killed off. The females were kept and trained into being fierce warriors, and these were gorgeous women. There was a certain elegance to them, a certain allure to them, that they were gorgeous, and that was and that was one of their strengths. They used their immense beauty. They used this as something that would normally, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if I see a very gorgeous woman or a very elegant woman, I would probably drop my guard compared to a woman that's very hyper masculine, kind of butch looking. And, that's how you even have the femme fatales, the whole like female assassins, use their beauty to lure in their prey and kill them. Basically using their sex, so to speak, the power of pussy, if we will. But I don't understand.
It's very powerful.
It really is. We even had a discussion about this in my job, like, how powerful pussy really is, and
it's very powerful.
It really is. Like, it can really turn best friends against each other.
Yeah.
It can. It can break up families. It can turn best friends against each other. And we're not saying this to be sexist. We're saying this to point out the fact that this is stuff that has happened. Ask your friends. You always hear about it. I'm pretty sure everybody here has at least had one friend, if not if it happened to them themselves, of an instance where, particularly in most cases, it's usually some female and will come into the limelight in some shape or form, and it causes some type of chaos. We're not trying to get into whole conspiracy theory in here nonsense. We're getting that.
Chicks always break up the fucking band.
Look at that example. And
they always do, man.
But it's this weirdness that if you haven't gotten it by now, it's the point that their beauty is so alluring sometimes that it will make you drop your guard, and that is when they attack. Hence why the Amazons were fierce warriors. They knew how to use not only their looks, but also their bodies. And I don't mean necessarily just in a sexual way, but also in a physical, combative way. So these were warriors. These were the top, this was stuff of legend. And this is why you have a series like Wonder Woman. You have Linda Carter, a woman that not only had beauty, but also had the physical power behind her. And she used that both traits.
And she was smart. She was elegant.
Exactly. This is being lost on people, especially the social justice community, who thinks that women have to look hyper masculine because, we have to represent more gays. We have to represent more trans. The reality is you don't have to represent more of anything, because we're not in a society where just because you're a certain way in most of the developed world, you're being targeted, all right? This isn't like the story of freaking Brokeback Mountain. And for anybody watching, asking why I'm using that as an example, if you've seen the movie, and no, I'm not talking about those scenes, you know what I'm getting at, where they were like in Texas and they killed the queers and, and they mutilated him. Most of the developed world isn't like that. This is why we don't, this whole nonsense of this representation. I mean, look at what they did with Captain Marvel in the Marvel comic. With Ms. Marvel, he looks like a straight up man in most comics. She has none of that feminine, the feminine curves that Ms. Marvel was really known for. That Carol Danvers was this very blonde bombshell looking woman. Now she looks straight up like a butch. In my opinion, she kind of looks like you watch these video games like with the Nazi soldiers, blonde hair, buzz cut, blonde hair, blue eyes. Oh, she doesn't have. I don't know if she has blue eyes or not. But she looks like something that came out of like one of the SS armies or something like that.
Well, they were smart hiring Brie Larson for the movie, because she is very feminine looking,
And that might come back to bite them in the ass because of the hole they dug themselves.
Because she's pretty hot.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. I'm actually okay with that decision. And if anything, I would have wanted to see her in the older Ms. Marvel outfit, the black and the yellow.
Yeah.
Because this new one, I'm sorry. Again, going back to the whole Ray thing, you're covering up her natural femininity. You're not exactly.
Well, they have her in rags, dude. She's not on that. She's not on Jakku anymore. The bitch is in space. You think she'd want to put on a pair of pants and a shirt?
I don't know, man. It's just this weirdness where we're getting to this point that they want to make this into a norm, and not just entertainment, but in society, where you have to accept this nonsense, or like you said earlier, you're racist, sexist, or whatever. And Brian brought up Gamergate. You're talking about strong, independent females. You know, Nita Sarkeesian went on her crusade about how this is the meaning to women and it's hurting culture and everything. And I'm like, bitch, have you ever actually picked up a video game? There's a lot of independent female, strong female characters, and we're not just talking about like characters like the main characters like Lara Croft, or even the character Bayonetta, which was mentioned a little while ago. There are plenty of others. There are other games out there. You know, pick up a game for once, and you'll see they exist. The problem is that not only will they never want to pick up a game and actually play it and enjoy it, it's about the narrative and the attention seeking, the whoring yourself out, so to speak. Brian, you still there?
No, I'm here.
I can hear it. I can hear you.
I was muted. Yeah, I just didn't realize. I was waiting for Eric to say something. You guys were having a good conversation, and I haven't seen Anita's actual videos directly, but people that were making a critique of her videos, and she was playing one of the Batman video games, and she was getting very annoyed that she couldn't move the camera to watch Batman's butt as he walked by because the cape was getting in the way. And I was just like, really?
Well, Bruce
okay.
Wayne does have a well-toned ass.
I get it, but it's kind of like you kind of proven your critic's point at that, with that remark. Yeah, because they're probably, people that play because they play a female character because they want to watch her butt or boobs or whatever. But yeah, it's to me, it was that article that I mentioned. I wish I would have kept a link to it. Was rather ridiculous in many ways because, when men have drawn strong female feminine characters like Miss Marvel, you were talking, the old school Wonder Woman comics, Batgirl, Supergirl, they all have accentuated curves, and some of them have. I mean, they have muscle tone, but they're not like they're women bodybuilders who have other curves. They have muscles that are proportionate to a female form that's a little bit stronger than average, but they're almost all. And they say, well, that's hypersexual. And now here we have an article where Laura Dern is saying, well, it's nice that we have a strong female character who doesn't look like a boy. And I'm like, well, yeah, please make up your mind. Do we have to have strong female characters who look like boys, or can they be sensual and have curves too? Because that's how men have been drawing them for 40 years.
Yeah. It's the beauty and the deadliness aspect of it.
Absolutely. I agree.
Again, and it's crazy. This goes even into like biblical, as far back as the biblical times. Even in how even they kind of expressed, like if we are to call some of the characters like the femme fatales, talking about like Adam and Eve, and even the story of Samson. How was Samson brought down? He wasn't brought down by another strong warrior. There was no warrior that could ever top. There was no man that could top him. He was brought down by how? He gave into temptation of a temptress, got drugged, and had his hair cut because he exposed his own secret. And what was the moral? And again, but for anybody asking why I'm bringing up the Bible, it's because of the moral of the story. Don't give into temptation. Be careful. Things that are beautiful can also be quite deadly.
Right, and to me, that's in many ways characters who are using what their strong suits are. Not every male character is this big hulking hero with huge muscles. You have, in my opinion, kind of a cross of the misnomer, if you will. And Eric's at Chipotle, so he's muted. With in the X-Men with Beast, where you have this huge. I mean, granted, I know he's blue and hairy, but he's this big, muscular character, but very high in intellect, right?
Yeah.
But then you have other superheroes who are male who don't have the strength. I think Samuel L. Jackson played one of these characters where his bones were very brittle, and he was very smart. The Joker was that way, right? The Joker doesn't have this imposing physical presence like Batman does, but he has to defeat Batman at an intellectual level, and so it's a mental game far more than a physical game.
Look at Flash, for example. Flash's main suit is his speed, not his actual. He's not really that strong, but he uses his speed in ways that compensate for the lack of strength.
Right. Well, see, Flash is an interesting character because a lot of times in the comics he is drawn with muscles, but
yeah,
it's really the power. It's the energy is mass times acceleration. So his mass isn't high, but his acceleration is huge.
Exactly.
And the Flash is also very intelligent.
Right.
He understands time, how to run through time. Mathematically, you'd have to be a genius to understand how to use that power. But
right.
I mean, the Flash I'm a big fan of the Flash. And,
right.
He's drawn with the muscles, but he's not a tough guy.
I don't think he's as big as Superman, and I think he's always almost always a scientist. First.
Pretty much has been.
So if a woman's strengths are her beauty and femininity and beguiling ways, and another female character her strength is, let's say it's muscles, let's say She-Hulk or something, and another one is intellect, well, that's just like the guys. There are guys who are weak, there are guys who are strong, there are guys who are smart, there are guys who are lucky. Hulk is not so bright when he's Hulk, right?
Yeah.
Me Hulk, me smash, Hulk smash. So, I mean, he's a scientist when he's not the Hulk, but when he's the Hulk, he ain't too bright.
Me have a big dick. Me not know how to use it.
Hey man, there's nothing like seeing the Hulk in a hot tub, man.
Why Black Widow lady touching Hulk dick? What is this feeling? Why Hulk want to? Oh my God! Can you imagine that? I feel bad for the universe already.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to our next topic because we haven't even gotten to your second. We still technically. Well, we've kind of jumped around a little bit, but one of the other things you wanted to talk about LMP is Eminem and why he's annoyed with the president because who cares about Eminem? But anyway.
Well, this was also another of those things that was discussed not that long ago. I forgot which episode. My memory is really terrible, ladies and gentlemen. But I remember we were discussing the rap that Eminem was essentially a diss rap that he did at the BET Awards, was highly praised by liberal media, by BET. A lot of left-leaning people for the most part. I myself don't identify Republican, centralist, libertarian, anything like that, but I kind of have some right-leaning views, whatever. The point is, we discussed how really the issue wasn't so much that he hated Trump, because that does kind of piss me off a little bit. It's like nowadays the arguments of hating Trump by most people are just, oh, he's a freaking racist or he's going to do this. And then I'm like, oh, God, we've been through this already. I'm not going to explain it for like the upteenth time.
Right. Well, I to interrupt you just briefly, I kind of, in many ways, attributed that like when Obama was elected the first time. Alex Jones, whom you've mentioned, there are people like him, and he may have too, always going to round us up and put us in FEMA camps, take all our guns away, and he never did any of that either. So I view it as like the left's version of the same thing.
Yeah, we're basically, we switched the pendulum the other way. Eventually, it's going to swing back, but we'll get to that when the time comes, hopefully. But the issue was at the end where he made the whole remark about, if you're a fan of mine and you're a fan of his, I don't want to deal with you anymore. So here's a middle finger to you and stuff like that. I don't remember. All I remember was that whole line. If any fan of mine was a fan of his, I'm like, oh well, fuck you, Eminem. I used to.
Watch his no oven tank.
Yeah, And I used to enjoy his content. I used to defend a lot of the crap that he did because a lot of our fans understood what he was doing with free speech, and he wasn't actually calling for violence or anything. Although there were times when it was questionable what he was. Was he just trolling, or was he trying to? It's like when the troll now.
He's going after Trump just because he wants to be fucking relevant again.
Well, actually, that's the point. That's actually the point of this whole thing. The reason why we're bringing this up again is because recently he did an interview, and I forgot where. Look it up on Mark Dice's channel if you want to hear the clip.
Yeah, I like Mark Dice.
Oh, Mark Dice is funny. I enjoy his content for the most part. There are occasions I'm like, you're kind of overdoing it a little, Mark, but it's still enjoyable nonetheless. Like kind of Alex Jones level. But he basically was given an interview saying how he's upset that Trump has ignored his rap, and I'm like, you've got to be the most obsessed, desperate human being on the planet right now, because you've essentially become the very same thing that your targets were. The people that fed the troll. Trump is not responding to you because he knows that's what you want, and he is denying you that attention. And you essentially gave him exactly what he wanted. He's doing the right thing here. He's winning this war, and people are obviously trying to play mental gymnastics and saying, "Oh no, Trump should respond to Eminem and blah blah blah." Why he responds to everybody else but not Eminem? And it's like, well, listen, if you knew if for those people, I also raised this. What was Eminem essentially doing to all the people that he used to troll back in the day? All the people he used to get mad at, all the celebrities he used to poke fun at and say horrible things about. A lot of them responded back, and it's like they made themselves look foolish. Now he's on the other side of that spectrum. He's essentially living out what they went through. And I find it hilarious that in the current year, how the mighty have fallen, he has to be one of the best examples of, hey, look, I was this once relevant, artist from the late 90s, early 2000s, pay attention to me.
He's the same age I am. He's 45. Most 20-year-olds don't give a shit about Eminem anymore.
They don't
care. He's not relevant. He's an old guy. He's an old school cool rapper, but that's it. Like, dude, nobody gives a fuck about you anymore. At least not.
Yeah, and he essentially this is annihilated what I would assume to be a good portion of his entire audience. I think I forgot.
I think you mean alienated.
Yeah, alienated. I don't know what I said.
You said annihilated.
Annihilated.
That's a little bit rough. Even for this show, that's a little rough.
But yeah. I mean, I don't want to talk about it much more than that. It was just really this whole, like, a follow-up on how the mighty have fallen, and this is essentially what this SJW nonsense is getting to. The people that were once on the top, these people that were once culturally relevant, are fading into obscurity no matter how much they're trying to sell this agenda to you. And Eric died again.
Yeah, I see that. I told him before that when I messaged him, if he drops off, I'll just wait a couple minutes and then add him back in. So let me go ahead and do that while we move to our next topic.
So, what shall we talk about next?
So the next topic was this SJW nonsense that led to the suicide of a young woman.
Oh, yeah. And I'm glad Eric is back for this conversation because I know this is the one that's basically been pissing me off this past week.
So Eric, are you with us or are you home?
I just got home, guys.
So do you need to deal with home and then do you need to hang up or what's...
Let me put you guys on mute and I'll be right back. I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about Miss Ames here.
Okay.
So go ahead, Dylan P.
Thank you, sir.
So, I'll be honest. When I first became aware of this topic, it was when was it announced officially that her passing away was? I think it was yesterday, wasn't it, or the day or Wednesday? Well, we'll get. I'll look at.
I muted myself again. I want to say 2 days ago, so Wednesday.
I'll confirm right now as we're going on, and basically, I became aware of this a couple days ago. There was a situation where porn actress. Yeah, it was on Wednesday. It was confirmed Wednesday. Porn actress August Ames, who I might have seen a couple of videos of her. It wasn't like my favorite porn actress, but she seems like a lovely lady nonetheless. But again, looks can be deceiving. We don't know. She seemed like a nice, lovely lady. Nice rack to her. Nice figure. I don't know how you feel about her, Brian, in terms of looks. But
no, she looks nice. She does seem to have quite a bit of makeup on, so I'm not a big makeup fan. She has a lot of foundation, but it's just I saw it. I could have sworn it was either. It was this guy that I know of in New York that I follow on Twitter and have for several years because he used to do a lot of stock trading stuff, and he retweeted something about her being committing suicide, and it was the trolls, internet trolling that kind of drove her to it. So I wasn't aware of her, and I thought, well, this my first thought was, oh, she looks like almost retired type porn actress. I was surprised when I read the article that she was 23 years old. Based on her, she looks a little older, and that may just be my prejudice because of the amount of foundational makeup that is there. She doesn't have a lot of makeup around the eyes and stuff, and we're not talking Tammy Faye Baker levels. But so that's when I kind of found some other news articles, and I could have sworn Paul Joseph Watson said something about it, but I'm not positive. But the whole thing where she, that she was supposed to do some scene or movie. I'm not exactly sure if it was a new contract or what the whole deal was. But she found out.
We'll get into that in a bit.
Well, she found out that one of her the main co-star that she was going to be doing stuff with had done gay porn, and she decided she didn't want to do that, and she tweeted that she whatever actress replaces her in whatever's going on to know that. And maybe she's out of line sharing that in a public forum like Twitter. I don't know. I don't know what the legal contracts and ramifications are. But I do remember watching a documentary on the industry several years ago. I think I came across it on YouTube that someone had posted and kind of doubled, and then I think I found it on Netflix. And I mean, they covered all the the gay, straight, and everything else, and I think maybe one or two actresses in that I had heard of. Most of them I hadn't. And there was a young lady who died of AIDS fairly quickly. She was just starting. She was in like her fifth or wasn't in very many movies, but it turns out that because when it was confirmed she had AIDS, it basically shut down the whole industry for like 2 weeks. And
how long ago was that? Because I think I remember seeing that
quite a while ago. I don't remember exactly. I think the documentary may have been the early 2000s. And
probably might be the same one. I don't know.
Yeah, and because they had this one lady who was a doctor who had been an actress who went to medical school, and she was she gets these very strange requests and things. And there was the guy who was like a producer of a lot of gay stuff. They all wear condoms, and whereas in the regular ones they get tested. But yeah, I mean it's a high risk environment. And it turns out that one of her co-stars had gone down to Mexico and did essentially a bi that was mostly guy-oriented scene, and didn't know he was infected, and came back and infected her. And so, knowing that, and I don't, I know of a handful of, obviously Tracy Lords, and I think because she did other things. That's how I heard about her. Plus her big thing of coming out that she was underage. That was the big stink in the 80s and early 90s. So, knowing that, and that's probably happened more often because this was just happened to be in this documentary. And like I said, I didn't know who any of these people were, but knowing that, her comments and her fear, if you will, I think are very justified. and you have someone who was in a higher risk group. Now, granted, I'm sure there's been, because apparently there's actors that on the men's side, that some that go back and forth, no pun intended. And I know back in the '80s, I'm probably sure it's still true. That was known that organized crime was involved in the industry, and it's kind of one of these kind of. It has some more legitimacy than in the, it's not like they're sneaking around making movies, but it's in that gray area. Is the morality question aside, is it legal? Is it not legal? Is really the at issue. There's been, I remember one of the news shows, I don't know if it was 2020 or 60 something years ago, did a thing where they were trying to, it was like one of the first round of things where they were trying to make all actors wear condoms, in which I think California, I think LA now has a law like that. And people were saying how they're going to lose money and all this, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's true, maybe it's just them not wanting to change, but knowing the high risk environment, I don't find her comments or her fears to be rooted in she's afraid of gays. It's the disease and the high, if you're going backwards, I think it would be, I would want to believe that if she found out that one of her co-stars does intravenous drugs and shares needles with 30 people every week, she'd have the same fear. Because that's another way of getting, that was the, a lot of the drugs and stuff when AIDS became the thing back in the 90s. So, and looking at the way the responses that she made, it sure seems to be that August was her name, right?
August was her name.
I think her fears were justified given the higher risk taking that implies. I know that there was this young lady, I don't remember her name, but years ago I remember seeing her on Howard Stern's show where she was going to do some scene, I don't know what, set some record. And she had been on that, and then she did a different record later, and she ended up with being HIV positive. And I don't know whatever became of her. But I don't think she wasn't sick, but she had the HIV. So, and that turned out that there was some guy that had done another scene and had done a gay scene and picked up something, and that's how she got it. So. That's two actresses, and I'm not, up to speed on every person in the industry that I've heard of that have had a problem, and so I don't find her comments out of line at all.
No, I agree with you. This is like I'm saying. I became aware of the story on Wednesday night. In fact, I became aware of the story. I mentioned this other YouTuber. He's been around for a very long time, Mr. Medicare. My nephew, which. Kind of weird that he's telling me about this, but he usually tells me about his new videos or his Twitter beefs. And really, this really took place on Twitter because it was a couple days ago. I believe so it was Wednesday. Probably would have been like Sunday or Monday when she posted the original tweet about her stating to her replacement, just be aware that wherever you are, the guy you're going to be doing the scene has done gay porn before. And this is a risk, a health risk, and blah, blah, blah. I can't give you the exact tweets. I would have to go through Twitter to find it, but if I'm able to, I'll read it on the air so that people at least have an idea of what was said. But I'm pretty sure her tweets are still up on Twitter. I don't think her account is closed, even though she herself has passed away. And what happened was that she basically spoke out. The one cardinal rule in any business: you don't have anybody ever expose the business. You don't have anybody ever reveal the dark secrets. It's all supposed to be glamorous. It's supposed to be this industry where you make this, where you make money. And the reality is, for a lot of men in porn, especially when they do straight porn, there's not really a lot of money to be made for men.
Oh no,
the men. It isn't a demand for straight males. Yeah,
that's my understanding too. It's other than your Ron Jeremy's and some other most guys, they don't want to be seen. And
then on top of that, it's not even that. I've heard I think I've read on Crack.com at one point before they became Cuck SJW Central with the whole Monday Matt and Zoe Quinn thing.
Right.
I think it was them who posted an article one time about how porn really wouldn't be a glamorous job because one of the things that is demanded from men, and this is the reason why you might have there might be also a history of like erectile dysfunction and even health concerns with men in the porn industry, is that you must be capable of shooting for 8 hours.
Right.
Now, yeah, and guess how that would be possible for men. Most men are not going to be up for 8 hours. They're going to need to take supplements.
Right.
So, and a lot of those supplements, like Viagra, basically are steroids. They're going to pump the heart.
Yeah.
They're going to increase your blood flow. That could essentially either set you up for a heart attack or some type of cardiac arrest. Who knows?
Oh yeah. Well, just listen to those commercials and the warnings. You know that you have to have healthy. You've got to basically, if you're over a certain age, your heart doctor better say you can take that stuff, Cialis or Viagra. And I've heard similar things like that. And a lot of it's been like on the Howard Stern show when I used to listen quite a bit or even watch when he had his show. There were clips on YouTube that I would pick up from time to time. And back when I lived, I was working in Columbus, I used to listen to him on the radio in the morning on my drive in. And, that stuff is detrimental, and they have to be in pretty good shape for the most part. And, it's kind of like, to me, like some of the bodybuilders who, these guys may have nice big muscles and low body fat, but God only knows what they're doing to their livers and their kidneys, and some of these guys, when they hit 40, they practically keel over. And I think the women have to look decent, but the men, it's a little bit more of they're not going to make it. I look at it just like modeling, right? How many male supermodels have there ever been?
Including Zoolander, I don't know.
Right, and it's the same thing. The men don't make crap, and they're never will. Oh, I don't know about never, but they don't. I mean, they make sick. You talk about a pay gap. There's a huge pay gap there. But in some ways, and apparently she also suffered from depression, what some articles have said, and that may have just kind of pushed her over the edge, because I would have been like, just ignore your Twitter feed. These trolls, as long as you're responding to them, they'll respond back. But if you ignore them, they will go away.
Well, here's the thing, and this is where I think
don't block them, because that gives them ammo. Just ignore them.
Well, this is where I think we need to dive a little further, and I think this is one of. I will post once the video is up, and hopefully if I'm not asleep, I'll post it sometime. Anybody who wants to watch it, I'll post a Medicare video because it really goes a little more in depth to what really was the underlying situation in this whole SJW cyberbullying crisis that we really is essentially getting worse by the day. I posed this question many times: just how far is this going to go? How far is it going to be before something really terrible happens? And I think, even though I probably won't say she's the first case of cyberbullying dying through some social justice nonsense. I think this is probably one of the worst cases because this essentially is one of those things where porn really, for most people, is escapism.
Right.
We're not thinking about our life's problems. We're thinking about just busting a nut or seeing some quality fucking. We're not concerned about who's the president. We're not concerned about whose ever's rights we're stepping on this week. We're not concerned about all that shit. Leave that shit out of it.
Right.
And what happened was when she made those comments, it wasn't trolls. These were people in her own. These were basically I don't know if they were coworkers, like people she knew personally, but these were people in the industry, other actors.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, I stand corrected.
That's what I'm saying. Watch the video. I posted it on Facebook. I will post it in the comment section for anybody who's interested. And see that this wasn't just your trolls. These were also other actors and actresses saying how she should be educated.
Right.
She's
well, yeah, I remember somebody read that. I don't remember if it was because quite often I listen to Stefan Molyneux or Paul Joseph Watson or Dave. I can't remember. Computing Forever is his channel. But,
I know who you talking about. Yes.
Yeah, from Ireland.
He especially makes some good stuff.
Right. And I don't remember which one, but they were reading that kind of stuff, like, to be educated. And yeah, that was. But see, I don't know how much of that is what they really believe, or they're afraid of the trolls. And so they come out right away and say, well, I wish I could have educated her, so that they cover their own butts.
Well,
but this education nonsense, people want to call Trump a Nazi, and they want to call the so-called right wing, the alt-right is not alt-right. The alt-right is more libertarian-esque than it is, right-wing. I don't believe there's actually a right wing, but that
Yeah,
is
I can see.
actually Nazism. The first concentration camps were not the death camps. They were re-education camps to re-educate people into getting a concentrated dose of Nazism. And this is the exact same mindset. The Nazis were leftist, just like the communists. They're just a little bit different version of tyranny. It's all leftist. And, that they have big government to control every aspect of everybody's lives and what you can say and what you can't say and when you can say it. And so I don't know how much of that sincerity and how much, but it doesn't matter, right? The end result was it pushed her over the edge. Maybe she thought her career was over. I remember years ago, I think her name was Savannah, if I remember correctly. It was because I was in college, and in some news group somebody brought it up, and I never heard of her. This porn star, who she got in a car wreck, if I remember correctly, and her face was disfigured, and it slightly. And so she was so distraught of never possibly being able to work again, she ended up committing suicide too. So there's probably a trend here that quite a few people in porn don't have the greatest self-esteem. And I remember looking her up, and I'm like, I never thought she was good looking anyway, but to each their own. So, if you're right, and it's also fellow actors who are going to scorn her and she's going to be on a blacklist, I can understand. From someone who already I don't know how much her clinical depression was, but I can understand it pushing them over the edge.
Well, she did reference again, and one of the things that made me really upset was that this is one of those few instances where I didn't just take the video at its word and say, I'm not gonna research this. Although maybe I'll glimpse at it and see and let the evidence speak for itself. I actually went into her Twitter because, again, like I said, when I found out about this was already at the point it was already confirmed that she committed.
Yeah, right.
And I know about the stuff that had happened. It's one of the reasons why I say the video is really good, because it captures some of the tweets that he was actually following himself. He is somebody who's been saying himself. I've been seeing his SJW crap for years now, talking about since the internet's once the internet started becoming this popular thing, the social media was rising, everything, forums, and he said he's been seeing it since then. So this is one of the reasons why I find him very credible, and I've listened to his content for a couple years now. And sometimes I'll be I take it at face value what it says. Other times I will actually research into it a little further, like with Gamergate and stuff. This is one of those instances where I researched it a lot further. Actually went into her Twitter feed, and I saw some of the comments that were still left there. A lot of those comments that were deleted were the ones where there was one particular actor, one that does gay porn. And by the way, I think they call it crossover actors, basically male actors that'll do gay and straight porn.
Okay.
And with the gay porn, they don't get tested like regular actors do, something that you mentioned about earlier.
Right.
So that risk of HIV and AIDS, and this is something that is not even necessarily a homophobia type of thing. This is something that is known across many, many, many communities. That particularly in the gay community, the gay population, there is a high likelihood of these, of the getting AIDS, HIV, and a lot of other STDs. I'm not trying to say because of degeneracy or anything. I'm not going to go that far now, or maybe I should, and based on the anger that I'm feeling, because again, something like this really upset me, rubbed me so many wrong ways, no pun intended. But this is something that's known in so many communities, so many backgrounds. In Latino culture, we know about this a lot, and it's kind of attributed to our own homophobia, so to speak, if you want to call it that. And she basically spoke out, and these people were one of them said something about how you should either apologize or take a cyanide pill. Either way would be fine with me.
Right. I remember hearing someone read that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically that is and then when she dies, he says, "Oh, I never asked her to harm herself or anything," and immediately Medicare and a couple of other people responded, "Oh, really? I have the tweets right here."
Right. Well, that to me that was a very telling when all of a sudden they're deleting their tweets and their CYA, and it's like, yeah, you goofball, I would love. I don't care if it's just 6 months in jail. I would like for these people to get prosecuted.
Yeah, I think this is basically, I used to take this whole cyberbullying thing a little too light before. I used to think these were just weak people that, didn't know how to handle the stress. But, especially with the political environment that we live in right now, like you said, one of the things was that she said her career was over. I would go a step further. I would say her life could have been essentially in jeopardy at that point, because look at how people react, especially since she lives in Los Angeles.
Right.
Now all of a sudden you say you don't want to fuck a queer? What are you, some goddamn homophobe? You're a fucking homophobe. You hate gay men. In California, you're practically saying at that point, here's a gun, shoot me with it.
Yeah. Well, I don't. To me, it doesn't matter that even if she had a predisposition to depression or not. I think it's immaterial. It's because it's a lot of it's the constant badgering. It's not, hey, I disagree with you. There's not a civil conversation, and a lot of the problem with the internet is it lets people be very anonymous in many ways. And now some of these people weren't. She knew who they were, and we know who they are, but. You can, as long as you have a valid email address, you can get a Twitter account. You can be anybody.
Sure. Case in point.
Right. So it allows people to hide behind this wall, I guess you could say. But I was bullied as a kid, starting from about 5th grade. So I have a hypersensitivity, and I try not to be bullying of other people, and when I see it, I try to curb it. Some people are just doing it; they're just joking around, they're kidding. But you never know. It's one thing if you know how the other person is reacting to it, and if they take it as kidding, I tend to not have a problem with it. But when the other person starts to take it as a serious affront, that's when and someone keeps going. That's when I really have a problem, because it's no longer funny anymore. It's not a joke. And there are people with strong personalities, and I get it. But it's, there's things like teasing, like people keep teasing Eddie for skimming movies. That's one thing. But no one's telling Eddie, hey, you skim movies, you ought to take a cyanide pill or something. That is completely different. And to me, that's over the line. When you start to suggest people to harm or in this case, kill themselves, you're no longer expressing you're no longer kidding, you're no longer ribbing, and you're no longer expressing an opinion, a harmless opinion, if you will, against what someone else believes.
To me, it's more about intent, really. Like I will definitely agree with you on that. And like I said, for me, a little more, it's about the intent. And judging from what I've seen in the tweets, what's left of not hers, because hers are pretty much intact. Anybody can just go on Twitter, check out August Ames tweets. I would say from the start of this week, and notice how there's a point where it almost sounds like her tweets are desperate, almost as if to say, "Listen, I'm just not comfortable with this." And a couple people, even in the Twitter threads, not just his but hers, and some of these other porn. And again, a lot of these porn actors now all of a sudden blocked their Twitter accounts. They protected their accounts, so that's very telling. They rose a question, and this is actually one of those things where now all of a sudden SJWs kind of get a little taste of their own medicine, and I'm glad that this was basically we tossed the shit back at them, so to speak. Some people asked the question, okay, so here's a woman who does not want to have, who is basically stating she is not content to a sexual act. What do we call that? And I'm like, what's funny? Because by the SJW mindset, if she does not consent, doesn't matter when the situation might be, or to whom, or for whatever reason, the listen and believe thing, that's called rape. So when people threw that back at them, it was like giving them a dose of their own medicine. You remember how you basically used to say how women have the right to, if they don't consent to even talking to a guy, but they still want to talk to it, that's rape. Or if she later regrets the sexual act because she didn't like it or wasn't satisfied, or just because it was rape. All of a sudden now they threw the shade at them. And it was like they realized they basically awoke a beast, the likes of which I had not seen since the Gamergate days, where, they were like, oh no, we're not going to take your shit anymore. We're going to fight back. You know,
Right.
you went at a defenseless target because she wasn't saying, "Oh, I hate gays" or "I will never do gay shoots." She's done lesbian stuff before.
Right.
So that's to say that she is homophobic would already on that alone be invalid. Or people saying that she was a racist. I've seen a few of her having sex with black actors.
Right.
So what other shade are you going to throw at her? She seemed to me, for the most part, a very loyal, or rather, what I would say, a very in terms of one person who tries to values what he does at his job, regardless how much he may hate it sometimes. Try to be the best worker you can possibly be and try to make the best of a situation you may or may not enjoy. She was an honest worker in a profession that you may dispute the morality of it, but she wasn't really harming anybody per se. She wasn't selling drugs. She wasn't, hurting anybody out in the street. She seemed like a person that even enjoyed her fans. That they appreciated that.
Right. Well, and we've been hearing for how many years that a woman, it's her body, her choice. And, this is, it gets to the SJW, they have different levels of protected areas, right? So apparently now the gays rank a little higher than a feminist woman, or a woman, especially a white woman, I guess, and I think they rank a little bit higher than black men too. So it's, and that's part of one of the things that one of the articles I read the other day talked about, right? She's done interracial, she's done, she really likes women and stuff like that, and apparently she was married. I forget the guy's name, but
did not know that actually.
Right. So, which and again, I was like, she's 23 years old. She looks like she's 33. So who knows? Like I said before in the pre-show, she may who knows what drugs she's been taking. But right, she's not out on the street corner selling stuff. She's in a controlled environment. And I wouldn't be surprised if they would have said, well, let's do a blood test of this guy, and if it comes back negative, she still does it. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me because the fear was the unknown, right? If he goes and gets a blood test done and it comes back negative, now she knows, okay, yes, he did, but everything's good. But considering they haven't done a blood test since then, again, it's, like the documentary that I said, granted, I don't know if it's too old, so I don't know if perhaps they still use condoms. But maybe they do, but they test less often or they don't test at all because they're assuming the condom's going to stop it. Well, the condom's not 100% effective. And I don't know what the incubation period of HIV is either. I don't know if you can be exposed and you'll pass a blood test as negative, but you really have something. I don't know how that occurs. But to me, it was an outright double. It's really that what we've talked about multiple times, right? The groupthink says you have to accept it, and you went against the groupthink, and so now the group is going to come after you like a bunch of sheep, and that's exactly what they did.
And to go even a step further, I know I keep saying that term a lot, but again, we're going far with this because this is just something that we should not, I would say, belittle just because she was a porn actress.
Right.
At the end of the day, she was a human being, and I mean, if she was my daughter, I would still feel some kind of emotion regardless of how I feel about her life choice, whatever it may be.
Correct.
Whether we had a relationship or not, I'm pretty sure I would feel some kind of guilt. Hell, I feel guilt. I never know this woman. I feel terrible for her, what she had to go through, not because of the bullying aspect of it, but because of the situation she found herself in. Somebody who's dealing with depression, dealt with in the past, I'm not going to lie.
Right.
That shit can really get the better of you at times, and it's really hard to sometimes get yourself out of that rut, especially when things look very bleak. But in her situation, what makes it even worse, talking about the testing, and we can obligate him to get a test. Again, the one thing is that they're not obligated to test him, and in his line of work when he does the gay porn.
Right.
The other issue, again, being Californian, I don't know if I'm pretty sure I brought this up before, but in California now, if you have HIV/AIDS and you knowingly spread it to someone, it's no longer a felony; it's a misdemeanor.
Right. Exactly, and I think that figures into this. That's part of the groupthink of, well, we can't. I'm sorry, but if I was going around with the bubonic plague and killing people with it, I think I should rightly be prosecuted for it. I mean, knowingly. It's one thing if you don't know. But that's the thing in the California law. It's knowingly infecting people with HIV is now a misdemeanor.
And think about that for a moment now. Now you can't even ask them,
Right.
to get tested. You can't even ask them, do you have HIV or AIDS? Because that's considered discriminatory. And I'm calling bullshit on that. Because what's to say, you always talk about these epidemics. It always starts with patient zero. It always starts with that one patient. They don't know they're carrying it. And all of a sudden they're spreading it to a bunch of other people who don't know they're carrying it. With HIV and AIDS, you cannot see HIV and AIDS in a person. That's not a disease. It's a virus. It's something that's with you for life. I think only 1 or 2 people have ever been successfully cured of AIDS, and I think they said that the likelihood of that happening, you have a better chance of winning the lottery than the likelihood of that happening. Again, because of how rare it is to come by the exact formula to cure, because it's not the same with every patient. So for the people, from what I understand, the people that are cured, if they were to get it again, the same cure might not work the second time. They might have to find a new cure for it.
Well, I think it's how there are apparently. I remember seeing a thing on this. I used to watch the Discovery Channel like it was a religious station. There was I don't think it was if it was the plague or if it was there was a previous disease. I forget if it was bubonic plague or Black Death, something where a lot of people in Europe had an immunity, and it was a way that the proteins bond to the cells. And HIV has a very similar, or AIDS. I still think that there might still be some argument whether HIV actually leads to AIDS or not, because like Magic Johnson's had HIV for 20 years and he's still around. So, but what happens when these people get infected? They get sick, but their body starts to reject the disease. The disease is not able to reproduce because it actually has to invade a cell to reproduce, and because the way that whatever parts of the cell that they were bonding to are different, they can't bond. And so they have this infection, but then it goes away. And so there's probably some people that have been cured by actual medications, and probably, I can imagine the medications, what it does to the rest of the system probably means that if they get it again, and many times people it's kind of like cancer. People will die of a common cold because the disease has made them weak. And so that part of the population, and a lot of people, these people live in Australia, interestingly, but they did some genetic search and they found out that these people were descendants of people who survived the plague in Europe. So because it attacks in a similar fashion. So then it becomes a question of can we change our genetics to change our connectors? But that's a whole other discussion, and we're getting close to 2 hours, and my voice is about gone. But to me, the problem is that they've identified this with a lifestyle. Well, it's not just the gay lifestyle that has created this disease. There's also a drug aspect of intravenous drugs and sharing needles. And so there may have been this combined culture where it became. It's still not. I don't think it's fully known exactly where AIDS came from. I think the first patient died in the 70s, if I remember correctly. So it came out of this alternate lifestyle culture where there was a lot of gay sex with men mostly. Gay women have a different epidemic on their hands with ovarian cancer and some other stuff that's kind of strange. But the fact that you want to take this, first we have a protected minority, right? As opposed to promoting minority rights, we want to protect these minorities. And now the offshoot of that, which we did back in the 90s, is now, hey, we know there's a certain group of people that have a certain lifestyle, whether it's choice or natural. Again, that's another discussion. We're going to protect them even further because we're going to say, hey, they can infect people. And I think that's just insane. If any other, well, not necessarily any group, but especially myself, being a white straight male, if I was to have some kind of disease, a deadly disease, and going around spreading it to people, Typhoid Mary was arrested. She only killed 3 people. Okay, it's believed that she infected 51 because I actually looked it up while you were talking. Yeah. And she was still arrested, and she was released, and she went back to being a cook. She had typhoid. She didn't exhibit any signs herself, but she was spreading it around, and people were dying from it. And, yes, I think we should be doing research because this is the problem, LNP. When as soon as you say, well, that's insane that they've done this, well, you don't care about gays. You don't care about people who get sick. It's like, yes, I do. And I'd like to see a bona fide cure. But I'm not going to put my head in the sand and say, when they know they have it, they have a duty to the rest of society to be mindful of their interactions. But we had this in the 90s where there was a dentist who they didn't have to disclose this to patients. And he killed a patient. While he was giving her cleaning, he nicked his finger, a drop of blood went in her mouth, she got AIDS and died. This young woman. And it was a big stink in the 90s of, because it protected or not protected. And I'm like, absolutely not. It doesn't matter that he's gay. What mattered is he was infected with a deadly disease. And that's where I'm drawing the line. Past that line, it's a moral question. We can talk about religion, and I can say whether I agree with his choice or not. That's immaterial to the legal aspect that he has a deadly disease. And I don't think there's any other protected group that if you had some other kind of disease that could spread around, and you did knowingly, because you would still have to prove intent, right? If you intended to infect people, that still has to be proven in court.
Yeah, that's actually very difficult to do.
Right, but at least you have to be mindful. And I understand people will say, well, that means if I got HIV, I can't. Well, you may have to change your line of work. You may have to change your lifestyle. I get it. But you know what? If I came down with a disease that couldn't be cured, and I exhibited no signs, but people interacting with me could get it, I would be sequestered. And so for her to go through this crap because people are afraid, and in the environment that California has created, okay, and this push to accept everybody or whatever, to me it's I think what's his name, Michael Savage is right. It is a mental disorder. These people are mentally ill that come up with these laws, and
it's gotten worse. I mean, the things they're pushing, it's not even. I don't even know. I can only imagine that if that becomes the things they're pushing for becomes the norm, at that point, I myself probably would not want to live anymore, because it just be to the point that, like, why would you want to live in a world like this? I would have to find a land that is untouched before I would want to live in a world like this.
It's sad. I feel, I don't know what her family background is. I don't know if her parents are, I don't know, but I'm sad for the family that they're dealing with. I look at this, Robin Williams killed himself. He suffered from depression. We've had some other ones recently where people were pushed over the edge by cyberbullying, and unless they start prosecuting these people, it's going to continue. And things like, hey, you should take a cyanide pill and be, for good of society. To me, that shows intent. If I'm just cruel to some, if I come back mean to somebody and they end up killing themselves, and I'm not saying go kill yourself, but I'm saying, I think that's stupid, or you're full of crap, or you're a horrible person for believing that. That's a little bit harder to say, hey, you push them over the edge. But when you're, telling people to take their own life in your tweet, that is just pure hatred. It's like, hey, the one lady who was doing this, I wish I had time to educate her. Well, why weren't your tweets educational? Right? If you really believe that, then your tweet should have been, hey, are you aware of this medical study about this? Hey, have you seen this article in the medical journal about the disease? That's how you educate. Not by belittlement, not by saying you're homophobic, not by saying you're racist, any of that other nonsense they were saying. Hey, here's some more information, just so you know. That's how you educate somebody. So that's a cop-out. These people have been caught, but basically their actions have led to a tragic end. I really hope that they get prosecuted. Like I said, I don't care if they're only in jail for 6 months. It is the prosecution that needs to happen.
Oh, a week even. I just give us something. I'm sorry. I don't call for. This is not a call to censorship. This is not calling to policing the internet. This is a call to not basically. You drove a person to kill themselves. You manipulated a person into killing themselves. Maybe not necessarily through intent, like that was your intention that she should kill herself. But basically, your actions are highly immoral. I would even say downright evil in the way you responded. It almost shows no guilt, no remorse. They showed. I read some of those tweets. They sounded more like they were more concerned about the cause, and they were concerned
Oh
about
yeah,
another human being.
absolutely. You're absolutely right.
And I would say in that regard, you are no better than the people who like to label others as super predators and such. Now, take that last comment as you will, and a dig at your beloved Messiah SJWs, because, like I said, one of the things that I got from this whole thing, and just to close on my end, if there was any sense of goodwill in your causes, you best believe right now a lot of people no longer give a shit. This pissed off a lot of people, and like a lot of I read a lot of pissed off comments on Twitter. This is your whole LGBT cause. Any support that some people gave you is gone, because this is the sword. These are the people that chose to represent your community at a convenient time. They chose to die on that sword. This is how they chose to, no pun intended. This is what they chose to. This is how they chose to portray their community. And as a result, because of a few bad apples, you essentially damage your own cause. A lot of people are not going to give a shit anymore. If people really think that people are going to start taking this stuff, SGW stuff, lying down, I think this might be a powder keg, in the sense that this might be one of those instances where people are going to start fighting back. Sadly, I wish this would get more attention. I haven't heard anything in mainstream news, and that's not a surprise, because they will, and if there it is, it's going to be twisted regardless.
Right. Well,
But
her being a porn actress is going to get a lot of. I mean, I grew up in evangelical background, and that's when I go to church, it's an evangelical church, and there will be a lot of people who are going to judge her on that, and that's why I said I really have to, from a moral standpoint. Yeah, I think her career choice is horrible, but it's still her choice, right? It's not.
Yeah.
I find it, and granted, this is where I don't know enough about the industry, and I don't know how. I mean, I've heard rumors that there's, like I said, organized crime, and a lot of these women are hooked on drugs and to do all these things.
Confirmed.
Right.
A lot of it confirmed.
Right. And so maybe she has a choice, maybe she doesn't. And that's the case, and there really should be more regulation, because that's essentially, rape, basically. And
By their words, no less.
right. And so from a moral standpoint, that's why I want to have a clear division here, a clear discussion that we can discuss her her career choices. I think is a separate, completely, just from the legal standpoint of, here's someone who disagreed with the group attacked, or members of the group attacked, the sheeple attacked, and this young woman took her own life. That's the reprehensible part. For me, it's immaterial what she did. As what she was involved in a legal profession, but even if she was a streetwalker and in an illegal profession, I still say they don't deserve to be pushed to this point. And again, because I was bullied for several years in different schools growing up, I'm extremely sensitive to this whole bullying stuff. Because what I found with my bullies is, until I stood up, the only time I couldn't stand up to one was like these two bullies when I lived in Tennessee who had older brothers on the bus. So I got the principal to stand up for me. Well, my parents.
You don't even get that anymore, by the way.
Yeah, but I had a bully. I was a senior in high school, and this kid was bullying me. I finally had enough, and I didn't. I scared the living crap out of him, and he was afraid of me after that.
That's how it goes.
And that's why I said with this, if she could have ignored these people, as far as on the internet interactions, and because I think you had some people piling on who were trolls. And I understand if it blacklisted her in the industry and she had to get another. I mean, I can understand the pain and despair of having to change careers. And I don't know what her skill set is, and I don't have any clue. But yeah, I agree. I think they need to do something, and it needs to be some kind of end result, so that we get people stop hiding behind the internet to be jackasses.
I mean, there's no stopping that. But I think going back to what we were saying, the intent, the whole wickedness and evilness of it,
Right.
the whole is really where I will draw the line. Like, if you're really calling for these people to harm themselves just because you would disagree with their cause, then honestly, at that point, I've lost any sympathy for you. I will not care almost of what the next words of your mouth. If you ask for help, I might not even give it to you at that point, because you essentially are not you're essentially doing the very things that you're claiming not to do. And I mean, it's just infuriating. I can't even think straight anymore.
Right. Right, and I want to say just one thing in closing to anybody that has any kind of Christian belief or background who's listening to me and thinks I'm full of it. Just go read the New Testament and look at what Christ's example was.
Yeah.
He went to the lepers, to the prostitutes, to the tax collectors, to the outcasts of society. Did he judge them at all? No. The only people he judged were so-called religious people. And so if you're going to start swinging a moral sword in my direction on that, you got another thing coming. And,
oh, hell yeah. I was a born again Christian for a while, and I'll tell you that much. Yeah, it's in the Bible.
Some of the most judgmental people I know are faithful they're at their Sunday school and Sunday worship every Sunday of their lives, and it's sad because I think they miss the entire point of the gospel completely. But it has been almost 2 hours, dude. I am almost out of a voice. So have you got anything else you want to say about this?
Well, I think it's a no-brainer who the BBC this week is going to be.
Yep. So we have some other topics we'll save for another time. We've lost Erik, and I'm about ready to pack it in. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, in light and honor of August Ames, we're making her our BBC. LMP says she's got you said a 32C, if I remember correctly.
32D. Nice, respectable 32D.
So, no, she's not Linda Carter size, but hey, big is relative. She's fairly short, I believe. I think she was, if I remember correctly, 5'3" or something. I don't know.
I don't feel like looking up it right now.
It doesn't matter. But and unfortunately, we're kind of ending on a down note. The only thing I want to briefly talk about is in 7 days, at least in this country, Star Wars. So on the 14th, I believe, Star Wars opens. Star Wars Episode 8. From a fan standpoint, I can't wait. Kendo is going to be up here in Cincinnati visiting World Class Bullshitters, most of them. I'm probably going to get a chance to hang out with him sometime. I'm not exactly sure when, because I thought he was leaving on Saturday. Now he may not leave till Sunday, and I don't know. So it'd be good meeting him for the first time. Anybody that's local of WCBS, I've met all the local people. Joel moved out of town a long time ago, although he was originally local. I've never met Joel either, but all the local stuff. So we'll see how that goes. I am looking forward to hearing a review, and I'm really hoping it's not like the Justice League was, where they don't want to rip it a new one. I mean, I want to see an irate Jeff so badly.
Same here, man. Hopefully that'll brighten up our weeks next week.
Yeah, and so. And then we'll talk offline whether or not we're going to do a show next week. Well, we can chat that in email since Erik's not available.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe I don't know. Maybe we can figure out something with Kendo up here and Jeff and everybody, or maybe we just don't do anything. I know they're going to be very busy closing out the year. We can decide if we're going to do kind of a year in review type show as opposed to an episode, or we might say, hey, let's just pack it in until after the new year. We'll see. So, listeners, make sure you've got your links, your notifications turned on YouTube so you can get some things. I am going to be moving the Christopher Littleton video over to this channel if I get off my lazy butt. I've been saying it for like 2 months, but I really am going to do that. I'm going to take it off mine. So I will obviously use a different background. I actually do want to get back to doing some of those things, but again, like I've said before, it's got to be a half an hour. We were keeping these shows to an hour and a half. Now we're over 2 hours, and I'm just about dead. And the dogs are really, one of the dogs keeps getting into stuff, and everybody else has gone to bed apparently. So
All right,
I got to
let's
take
kill
them
it
out.
now.
I got to take them out as well. So I'll do that while I extract the audio. Watch the main channel for that. Make sure your alerts and notifications. Also on my YouTube channel, I've got a bunch of beer reviews that I've got to be editing. I've got a bunch of beers that I'll be getting to. I'll be getting to some tomorrow. I know Jeff asked me last week about it, and he kind of caught me off guard. I do have a Breckenridge Christmas Ale that I did post. I have the Schlenkeller Urbach. It's a Schwarzbier, so it's what they call black beer. It's Rauchenbier actually, so it's a smoked beer, so it's smoked malts. That is the only brewery so far that has actually posted and it is an embedded video on their homepage. And they know that I have that and that I'm going to get to it. They've been around for several hundred years, so they're not, really antsy. But I'm getting more retweets of my beers, especially of my beer reviews, especially of local ones. And I actually had Muscle Tech follow me, which freaked me out. So, and I do have some supplement reviews that I've got to get to. One of them is a Muscle Tech product, which was pretty good, and so that's great. I'm hoping to get more retweets that way too. So, folks, you're going to get on my channel. You're going to get honest reviews on whether it's beer, whether it's supplements, whether it's movies or whatever. And yes, I have been working on some other things for the Braincast. I've got to resurrect that show as well. I'm going to start weaning myself off of WoW a bit more and get back to some of the other stuff I like doing. I've had several people that I know in real life that have said, hey, when are you going to get back to that? We don't care about that you play Warcraft. We want to know how nerdy you can really get. So I've been reviewing a lot of Apple II assembly code. I actually bought a book and have been in contact with the author on it because I want to use some of the examples in there for some things, obviously giving full credit. So that's what I've got coming up, obviously, with holidays. Some of that's going to get delayed, and I can't wait to see some of the other videos. Also, people, if you want to support WCBS more directly, don't forget about their Patreon starting at $1. The content is great. I'm personally at the $25 a month level. I think or 20. Now I don't remember. Maybe it's $20. It doesn't matter. Kendo Slice was the very first patron. He joined 12 seconds after it went live, and so now he's on the main show as well. So it wasn't like he bought his way, but it was the enthusiasm he showed for the show, his intellect, and obviously he was instrumental in starting the Fancast. He and I were the first couple shows, and then LMP came on board, and we had Frank, and then we lost him. So. And
well, that's what happens in another reality.
Right. So, and Erik will get, and hopefully I would love to get Augs back on, and Justin B as well. And like I said, for the stronger personalities, such as perhaps Eddie and Christopher, I really want to get something probably once a month. With my new job, even though I work closer, my hours are longer. So it's,
Same here.
My free time is gone away. Also, ski season is going to start tomorrow. I have to patrol Sunday afternoon. So, if you're in Cincinnati and around, you want to go to Perfect North Slopes, and you want to ski for free, just get a hold of me. I'll get you a lift ticket and a lesson. You will have to pay for your own rentals unless I really like you. So, LMP, thanks for joining us again. Glad you're feeling better. Any closing thoughts?
Glad to talk to you. I mean, the only thing I'm going to say, this is like one of those few moments I won't portray any weird, dumbass Mexican character or anything like that. But ladies and gentlemen, I posed the question, just how far this nonsense is going to go. But I do want to say this in closing, that we know at some point this nonsense will turn, the pendulum will swing the other way. Let's not become the very same thing that we hate. Let's not go to these extremes that some people are going through. Let's try to be a little more merciful in our math. I mean, that doesn't mean that you can't say the occasional fuck or tell a person to go fuck off. I'm just saying, let's not become the very thing that we hate when the pendulum does swing in the other direction. Because apparently that lesson was lost on the people that are, lost on the social justice warriors apparently. And I mean, look at what's happened now. I'm still really distraught about this, not because of as an HJW thing, but because of how callous this is really treated. It's just being swept under the rug, so to speak.
Yep, I agree, and that's It's almost like, it's a third generation thing. Feminism back in the '60s was fighting against injustices. So were the civil rights movement in the '60s. There was a lot of things that were, happening in the '40s and the '50s that came to light. But this is why Martin Luther King talked about character, and we had this discussion in the '90s about character mattering. And people should be judged by their character and not the color of their skin. And that's the part people are forgetting. And so if someone is a horrible person and they got black skin or red skin or blue skin or green skin, I don't care. I don't care if they're gay, straight, or something in between, or it doesn't matter. It's what is their character. And I think what we had with these people attacking her is their character showed, and that's what I'm judging these people on. Is their character. And if we hold on to character mattering, a lot of that other stuff takes care of itself. And so, yes, we don't want to swing all the way back to the other way. We want to stay in the middle where character matters. Things are allowed. People are allowed to do what they want as long as they're not harming anyone else or causing destruction of anyone else's property. And that's
Agreed.
really where the boundaries are. And with that, thank you for listening. Thank you for keeping up with us for the last half hour. We've been pretty dreary. We're ending, I don't know. Are you tired? I'm very tired. So I don't have enough energy to really close.
No, that's all right, man. If you want to kill it here.
No, I'm closing out. And we'll talk about other things like, Batman and DCEU and all that stuff some other time. Maybe. Because maybe we'll have better information and we'll see, there's a glorified plan that's going to make it all better. But episode 8, we'll see what happens. I saw episode 7 on Christmas Eve day, on the 24th of December, 2015. So most likely, even if this movie turns out to be stupendous, I probably won't see it for a while, but we'll see. And we will see you next time whenever episode 26 occurs. Thank you very much. Bye.